Welcome back to Out of the Fog. Up next, we speak with the director of That Little Room, the story of Erin's Pub, and one of the owners. Now, the film tells the story of the pub through the eyes of some well-known local personalities like Alan Doyle and founder Ralph O'Brien. The short film touches on the history and portrays the humor, music, and resilience of Newfoundlanders. Here's a sneak peek of That Little Room, the story of Erin's Pub.
Everybody, played Newfoundland and traditional Irish music first and foremost, and most of that came from the lips of fellas like Ralph O'Brien.
We had tremendous success with our albums and all that, but I always had in my mind, I always wanted to open a bar. So what I did in actual fact is I created a venue for the Sons of Erin.
Masterless Man definitely played there. Saw the Punters there.
Dermot O'Reilly and Fergus O'Byrne, Connemara.
The Irish Descendants.
Erin's Pub was rocking.
I don't think I ever had a dream to have my own pub. I always dreamed to have this pub. And I got it.
He was eager to sell it to us, where I know many other people have offered him money for the pub over the years, and he declined. But he knew that we'd take care of his baby. We could open now if we wanted, if people were stunned enough to go sit there in the middle of a shithole and have a pint. St. John's has an energy about it that most places don't have. It has a sense of assuredness that most places don't have. And most of all, it has this music that's the lifeblood of the place. Erin's was a funny little room that somehow managed to capture all of that.
I'm thrilled that Chris and Bob is taking it over because the music is going to live.
And that was a sneak peek of the film, The Little Room, the story of Erin's Pub. Joining me now to tell us about how the film came to be is the director, Cody Westman, and co-owner of Erin's Pub, Chris Andrews. Guys, I'd like to welcome you to Out of the Fog. Great to have you here.
Hey, Erin. Thank you.
So congratulations on the film. It looks fabulous. Cody, I just have to ask you, where did this whole idea come about?
Well, I mean, I wanted to do something, just to start sort of get in the industry here, and I knew Chris a little bit through my wife and everything, but I knew that him and Bob had bought the place, and they're both well known, and then I saw that the pepper mill had closed, and I just assumed, and I knew that they bought it, so I assumed that they're going to knock the wall down and do this like giant bar to rival, O'Reilly's or whatever. And I asked Chris if he wanted to just sort of tell the story, and they said yes. This was on like a Friday. And then we were supposed to meet on Monday to talk about it, and just to talk. And we went in, and he had actually forgotten about the meeting because his mind was a little bit preoccupied. They had a flood the night before.
Right.
So we went in, the place is destroyed, and we said, man, we got to start right now. And we went home, got our camera, and we made a quick softbox at home, and we just started that night.
That's amazing. And Chris, so, I mean, obviously walking in, I remember at that time, I mean, that was pretty extensive.
It was bad, yeah. I didn't quite have the enthusiasm that Cody and his partner had when they saw the damage. It was quite a shock, especially, new in the business. And we just did a bunch of renovations ourselves just before this had all happened.
Mm-hmm. So it's like starting over again?
It was starting over 3 times in 1 year, yeah. It was pretty harsh. It was, I don't mind saying lesser people might have fallen because it was a hard goal. Yeah. And but it was great that Cody and Peter could capture that and see, how it happened and how we pulled it together with a lot of friends and help and luck and with everything. It was good.
There's so much, just so much history in that pub. Cody, you had some very, well-known, recognizable faces helping to tell the story. What exactly was it, like your initial goal that you wanted to get across with this film?
Well, I'm just a huge lover of music and music documentaries and history and everything, and also lover of this town and this scene and everything, and I just think it was really cool to get into a place that had so much musical history and everything. And of course, this whole thing couldn't be told without Ralph O'Brien. I mean, this guy introduced me to Ralph. I'd been there a couple times before, but I don't think Ralph was working late night type thing. But yeah, there's a lot of history there with traditional music. It's pretty cool.
Right. Well, even when you mentioned Ralph, and of course the Sons of Erin, but even there was a lot of bands that got their start at Erin's Pub.
Well, it was, it was the first, and that's where, if you were playing traditional music in the late 80s, early 90s, that's where you had to play, So you had, the Great Big Seas and Irish Descendants and Shannigan started there, and, everybody sort of got their start on that little stage, and in that little room. I like how Cody put it,
Now, Peter Furlong came up with that. He's the producing partner. I just got to give him credit for that title.
Fine, but it's very apt,
Yeah.
It is what that place is, and it's, it was pretty special for me and Bob to buy the place. We got our start, that's where we started, and now to try to give other bands opportunities, young bands, the opportunity to get out and play in front of people, and we've been doing that with, a lot of our bands we have playing are 20, 21 years old, 19, and they're the new blood of the industry, and that's what we need, to keep our music going.
Right. Erin's was, of course, Ralph's baby.
Yep.
Right, for so
Ralph
long.
and Phil.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
just wondering what was his when he watched the film. What was that like for him? Do you think?
Well, I think he's thrilled about it. I'd have to ask him. I think Chris would probably know that better than me because he's pretty close with Ralph.
I think I watched it with Ralph first. I think we just down to my house. I'd put it on the TV, the big screen, and sort of say, "Okay, watch this, there, buddy."
Yeah.
And he loved it. But it was great for him to see people speaking so well about something he thought so much of, and to have he ran that place for 26 years, which the run of the bar is pretty amazing, and plus helped a lot of us out along the way. So I think it's a great feather in his cap, to have it go out that way for him and show what the place meant to people. It was a very nice touch.
Right. Cody, before we just actually started recording, we were just chatting and just talking about how many people have commented on the film in terms of social media and being on a flight and traveling and just being able, oh great, it was a great pleasure to be able to watch this film while we're traveling. What are your thoughts on the feedback that you've received?
Yeah, it's really cool. It was picked up by Air Canada, just shortly after it came out, and it was actually for the month of December and January. So it was over Christmas, and we're spreading the word, with social media and traditional media to get people to watch it on the way home and whenever they travel. And even just today, two different times, people tagged themselves, a selfie with the show playing, and one was on a flight to Toronto, one was on a flight to Barbados. It's really cool, It's to think that it could be. You could leave any city in the world that Air Canada flies out of and watch the story of this pub, within 10 minutes. Pretty cool.
When when you always have a goal or a thought going into making a film or even doing an interview, and sometimes it takes a different turn. Did that happen at all for you when you in the making of this film, where it kind of took a different direction and you got something that you didn't realize you were going to get out of an interview?
Well, from the very beginning, really, because of the flood. I mean, we were literally just, I'm a fan of so many different kinds of cinema and whatever, and a lot of these things that are out now on Vimeo, these are just little. What I wrote on my nightstand, at 2 a.m. was 10-minute doc about Erin's Pub. It was going to be just a real brief thing about the changing of the guard and the two guys that did it and the history, but really quickly. And then it was the day that, they had the flood. It was like, okay, now we have a real story, because they were like, a month before St. Patrick's Day, and it just turned into a totally different thing. So it was the history plus the rebuilding of the thing and the reopening, and that's just sort of the bookend of it. So it changed right from the beginning.
Chris, for you and Bob, to take this over, and you talked about, how much that means to you. Do you feel as though you're really, you're doing justice to Erin's and the brand that it is?
I think we're staying pretty true, yeah, no doubt. We want to keep the pub just the pub. It is what it is, and it's out of the way. It's not, it's not tied into other bars where you get all that traffic going through and people just come through. Erin's is a destination. You have to be going to Erin's. And we like that, it's very music driven. People still clap for the band. It's just one of those nice places.
Excellent. Well, Cody, we have to leave it there, and Chris, but I want to just, of course, if anybody wants more information on the film, if they'd like to view it, how can they do so?
It's at my website, catseyecinema.com, and you know, it's the full film is up and the trailer is up, and it's on every Air Canada flight until the end of January. I just want to take 2 seconds to thank so many people that did help me with it that I haven't actually done any interviews yet. I mean, there's lots of photographers and video, and just a lot of people came together to help me tell this story for, you know, $0. So it's and of course this guy. So yeah, thank you very much.
All right, well, I'd like to thank you both very much, and I'm sure we'll have you back on again in the near future. Thanks.
Right on. Thanks, Erin.
All right, we're going to take a very short break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.